We got Dr. Braxton Hunter, pretty talented and well-known apologist. Shared the stage with the William Lane Craigs, to the Mike Laconas, to all those guys. Jonathan Pritchett, Dr. Pritchett is here, and he is a New Testament guy, does a lot of stuff, a lot of podcasts, a lot of debates, so on and so forth.
So is the guy on the left Jerry Lewis, and Braxton's trying to be Dean Martin here? The straight guy and the funny guy?
They gave us nothing but tradition and no argument. All they did was get on this stage, yell real loud, and set a straw man on fire.
Okay, now, I was not impressed.
Hell, Jonathan Pritchett. This Jonathan Pritchett. Gresham, Jonathan Pritchett. And
respectfully, that sounds like a little bit of a dodge.
I'm claiming victory.
So where I come from, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
Welcome to Trinity Radio. I'm Braxton Hunter, and along with me is
Jonathan Pritchett.
And today we're going to be talking about preaching and skeptics and what they want and what they like, according to them. Stick with us.
This is the first word.
Your Christian beliefs should change your actions. One of my favorite films has always been Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. As a Christian apologist who is seeking to demonstrate and defend the truth of the Christian message, I can relate to Indy's quest for the supernatural artifact that could turn the world on its head. Though this is one of the most quotable movies in history, my favorite line comes toward the end. Just after the crew arrives at the site of the Holy Grail, they discover that not only is the enemy already present, but there are several more challenges that need to be overcome. Only Indiana Jones can successfully procure the sacred cup. Strategically, the film's villain puts a bullet into the stomach of Henry Jones Sr., Indy's father. Now the hero has a choice. He can either spend his father's final moments at his side or attempt to quickly retrieve the Grail on the off chance that it really is a miraculous object that can save his father's life. Faith versus naturalism. The villain then says the powerful words, "It's time to ask yourself what you believe." James 2:14-17 says, "What use is it, my brethren, if someone says he has faith but he has no works? Can that faith save him? If a brother or sister is without clothing and in need of daily food, and one of you says to them, 'Go in peace, be warmed and be filled,' and yet you do not give them what is necessary for their body, what use is that? Even so, faith, if it has no works, is dead, being by itself." Faith should impact our actions. The Christian message is that there should be some actions that demonstrate the truth of what you believe.
All right, we did an interesting experiment on Twitter where Braxton asked the atheist, "What would you want from a sermon if you were to listen to one?" Now, you did use you said facetiously if you were forced to listen to one, and people were like, "What do you mean forced? Who's forcing me to listen to a sermon?" Blah, blah, blah. Come on, everyone knew what he meant, because basically atheists are like, "I wouldn't listen to a sermon unless I was forced to." I mean, come on.
You can't, really, I do feel sometimes with some atheists, you can't win because however you phrase something, they're going to find a way to make it evil. Right? Yeah. Oh, that's just like Christians, to force us to do something.
Yeah, and then some lady on Twitter was like, "You're just going to use all these jerk responses to point out how atheists are jerks." And he said, "No, I'm not."
Well, that was not my goal.
Right.
Still not my goal.
My goal is
it's his goal.
Exactly that. Because
and it wasn't a pre-planned thing.
Yeah.
I just tweeted this out. For my personal interests, I had thought about doing a series, which I've now begun, which is going to be a very occasional series, once every couple of months or whenever I feel like it, called Sermons for Skeptics. And I thought, in order to locate the types of sermons that I think skeptics might be more open to, I'm going to ask them, what do you hate? And what do you hate less? And see what they say. And I knew I'd get a lot of vitriol. Jonathan didn't even know I was going to do that. And then he texted me the night that it was all blowing up and said,
"We're doing a show on this.
This is gold."
Yeah.
And, I've already told this one person, I'm not trying to say, look how awful these comments are.
But you know what? The problem is even though the show is mostly Braxton on most episodes, and the web address is youtube.com/Braxton Hunter, the thing is that I'm really running this show here, so
let me...
No, I'm just kidding. Here's the thing. I'm not actually going to focus on the fact that most of the comments were people being jerks. People being 10-year-olds who can't sit still and listen to anyone speak for more than 50, 60 seconds, I guess. But I'm not going to focus on those. I'm going to help you maintain your saying. But there were plenty of that, and yes, you should be chided for acting like 12-year-olds, atheists. But the ones who did respond, I thought there was some helpful comments that I wanted to discuss.
Let me say some things first, because I thought about this on the way to work today. There are a couple of things. There's a reason why I did this. Some people might be wondering why, and I would get that. So what could I possibly hope to get from trying to find out the answer to this question? Well, in a certain sense, it's kind of like when a Christian asks an atheist or an atheist asks a Christian, what would it take for you to be convinced? It's kind of that kind of a question, but much softer, much way back on the field. The question is more, what sort of a message would you be more open to? And make no bones about it, I've tried to make this very clear. I'm doing this because, yes, I'm open. Yes, I'm open to evidence that might be presented by my atheist friends, but I believe I'm right, just like every single person who has something to say thinks they're right and hopes other people will accept it or challenge it. I think I'm right, or I wouldn't be saying this. You think you're right, or you wouldn't be saying it. If I didn't think I was right, I'd hold a different position. And I want you to be convinced that we're right, that Christianity is true. I'm sorry, that's what we're doing here. This is called evangelism. It's a discipline among Christians, and we're doing it through the vein of apologetics. So I wanted to know, what would you be most open to? And I did actually get some helpful responses, but that's the goal. Yeah. Part of the reason for that, now you might, if you're a Christian, you might say, well, who cares what they want? They're going to try to tailor away all the relevant stuff, the most important pieces of a message anyway. Now, the reason I want to know is there are a lot of things I've noticed since I've been observing this culture of atheist and theist interactions. There are a lot of things I've seen atheists complain about that I agree with them. And there's a lot of things that they don't like in sermons that don't really have anything to do with the gospel message directly. So honestly and charitably, I think, if we can strip those things away and get to the gospel message in the purest way, in a way that is most acceptable to them, I want to find what that is. Now, it actually turned out that as we ran the experiment, that it went the way that some of you might have suspected, and the way I hoped wasn't the case, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But that's what I'm trying to do, is to get to the things that are most helpful. And it just so happened, I think I tweeted that on like Friday or Saturday. Had no idea what Brett Nicholson, our pastor, was going to preach the next Sunday. Yeah. And he had begun a series the week before that you were there for, but I wasn't there for, so I didn't have any clue what was coming. Yeah. And it just so happened that all the things that the skeptics told me they hate the most, the charitable skeptics that were like actually trying to answer the question. And by the way, this should be the headline for this show. For those of you who are atheist, agnostic, skeptic, however you identify yourself as an unbeliever, for those of you that answered this and tried to take it seriously and tried to really give me what I was looking for, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Much gratitude.
Once you clear out all of the, let's face it, fully expected, childish, vitriolic crazies on Twitter, which I get it. There's Christians who are like that too. Fine. Yeah, whatever. But we're not talking about them. We're talking about you, atheists. And so, yeah, everyone's got their loudmouth, ranting, vitriolic, angry people, but we're talking about yours. And if you don't like loudmouth, vitriolic, angry people, and you think Christians act like that too, or Muslims act like that too, or whatever, then don't act like that. Simple. But, of course, when you clear out all of that nonsense,
there were a few good comments.
Yeah, there were, and I thought that they were actually very interesting. And you get what you expect even when you ask Christians what kind of sermons you like. You get there's a lot of different flavors of, it's subjective, I guess, what things. There were some things that were common, and then you had different things like one person was like, man, I really like Joel Osteen's sermons. They're really positive and uplifting. And so I can hear the Southern Baptists.
And then the atheists and the Christians ripped that guy apart.
And I hear the Southern Baptists, like my friend David Worley, say, see, he's doing what the world wants. There was one guy who said that, and you're right. Both the atheists and the Christians were like, are you seriously? But no, I mean, if you want light, motivational speaking, I guess that's a good thing. Whatever.
Right.
But what struck me the most is the contrast between the people who want, I want something that I can apply to my life. And then you have the other people that said, if I'm going to hell, give it to me straight.
Yeah, big difference there.
Yeah, and that surprised me. That it was like, I mean, don't give me this cookie cutter Mickey Mouse stuff.
Right.
Give it to me straight. If you think I'm burning in hell for all eternity, let me know.
Yeah, and I was really surprised with. First, let me say this. So, for those that may have stumbled across this video and have no idea who we are or what we're talking about, so we did that. We did this Twitter. I did this Twitter request for respondents who would give me what they want. But then I actually the next day. So I had no idea what my pastor was going to preach, but the commonalities that existed among the respondents on Twitter, the skeptical respondents, there were three that I could tell. One of those was that they don't like to be told they're going to hell, except for the handful or the one or two that said what you said.
Yeah.
But most of them said, I don't like to be told I'm going to hell. I don't like to hear the hellfire and brimstone stuff. Okay, that's one. Another one was I don't like I don't like people to make mere assertions. I like them to try to demonstrate to some degree what they're talking about. And the third commonality was that they don't like, if I remember correctly, that they don't like when preachers mischaracterize, straw man, atheists and people like that. Okay, so taking those three things in mind, I go into church on Sunday, and I think all that happened before Sunday, and I'm sitting there on Sunday, and my pastor is preaching a message that hits all three, like it avoids all three of those things they hate and does the opposite. So he's making claims, obviously, this is what we believe, but here's a demonstration of a good reason why we think it's true. Okay, no hellfire and brimstone stuff, no mischaracterizations of atheists. In fact, he's charitable toward atheists.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was
going to say the week before, and this you say you didn't know if you were going to post the other one too, but the week before, the pastor actually he played a clip from Alex Rosenberg talking about the implications of a naturalistic worldview and how Alex Rosenberg tries to live consistently. All he did was just play Alex Rosenberg giving an interview and made no comments on it other than this is how he's living out or trying his best to live consistently with his worldview. That's it. He gave no apologetical critique. One of my favorites is when William Lane Craig, in their debate, he takes a premise from his book like 6 or 7 times and just thrashes it. I mean, it's a
if I believe what you're saying, then I have no reason to believe your book.
Yeah, I mean, it's just thoroughly
contradictory.
Just exploded. Everyone should go watch that clip where he just naturalism's stupid. But he made no comments that I would have made after playing that clip. He just said, here's a guy's living consistent.
Here
with
it
his
is.
worldview.
He's trying to be consistent.
Yeah. And then he talks about we need to live consistent with our worldview and all this other stuff. And no straw man of the other position. He didn't do it in the sermon you played either from this past Sunday. No straw man. He says, this is what they believe, this is what we believe. Here's different worldviews or whatever.
So that's what I want to get to. Yeah. So I took that sermon and I asked my pastor, I said, hey, Brett, and he lives this is funny. He lives in the same condominium complex that I live in, and we had no idea, but that was going to happen. But so anyway,
they live in a condo for old people,
right? My favorite place I've ever lived in my whole life. Right. So I asked him, can I take that? And I said, I want to put it on my YouTube channel. And I said, I'm not doing this to get hits. Because frankly, and I don't mean any offense by this, but it's a big local church, but it's a local church, and they don't yet have thousands of people clicking on their links.
Yeah, they're not the international celebrity.
I'm not an international. I'm not Mike
world traveler Braxton Hunter. Sorry, Brett, you're just not on his level. That's exactly what he's saying.
No, I'm not. I'm trying to say, because look, I'm small.
You know what he told me yesterday in the parking lot? Yesterday in the parking lot, you said, you had your time, and now it's kind of my time. And I was like, I wanted your time. I wanted you to blow up way bigger than me. He goes, I know, and that's what's happened because I'm way bigger than you.
No,
you said exactly what you said.
I want to decrease that you might increase, so I try to do that. I was like, you don't have to try anymore.
So I was like, I'm just saying, we know what this is, Brett. This is what he's saying to you.
That's not who I am. Okay, that's not.
Except to me, is that what you're saying?
To you, of course, because you deserve it.
See, when the cameras are off, you find out the real
thing.
Yeah.
But okay, so I took that, and the point was, I wasn't trying to get that sermon to boost all my views.
Yeah.
I was because I anticipated that
It should, though, because it's a great sermon.
Yeah, but people don't know that. I anticipated it to be lower views than the other stuff, although it's performing 52% better than the average video, so that's great.
Maybe he will blow up bigger than both of us.
Right.
You know?
Well, he has probably the potential. But anyway, so I took that video and put it out there and said, I found the preacher for skeptics. And then I asked skeptics, you can go watch it, I asked skeptics to tell me, don't be a jerk. Don't try to just look at this as an opportunity to insult. Yeah. But really try to give me positive feedback or helpful feedback. You can be critical, but tell me, is this in the ballpark?
And once again, when you screen out all of the
yes.
and there was more of that in the comments than on Twitter.
Because I have a bigger YouTube following than a Twitter following.
Right.
Yeah.
But I thought there were some productive comments
very productive comments.
I think you marked them with a heart and told Brett, just read the ones that...
Well, I told Brett, because I told him, I said, look, just go through and only read the ones with hearts.
Yeah.
Because what I wanted, because he, for somebody who's never had, I'm going to take your sermon, throw it out there, and let people throw knives at you. Right. I mean, that's a little, I'm used to it.
Yeah, we're impervious to this. We're impervious.
Yeah, like when you all write 5 paragraphs of snarkiness that when you're writing it, oh, this is going to get under Braxton's skin. It did. For about 3 weeks after I had the debate with Matt Dillahunty, and now I'm completely impervious.
Yeah, you're the.
I don't even respond.
You're the dumbest person on the planet selling snake oil, blah blah. Yeah, don't care.
Yeah.
You know what I like to do when they make 5-paragraph long rants is just delete it and say, "Ha, you wasted your time."
Well, that's in violation. If they're in, I have rules that I can't. Yeah. Some of you will say, "Why, Braxton, did you delete my comments?" I didn't necessarily delete your comments.
I might have.
And we've got at least one other moderator.
Maybe it was just for fun. Maybe it's because you spent a lot of time on it, and I wanted to waste your time, and I never read it. I just said, "That's long." Gone.
He's not. He doesn't follow my rules.
I don't. I'm like whatever. No, I'm sorry.
This is
you
not
forfeit when you act the way that you act. You forfeit on our YouTube channel me caring how you feel. Period.
All right.
Sorry.
So back to the good comments. So I got.
Because you know what I don't do? I don't go write 5-paragraph long essays on their YouTube channels.
Yeah.
You don't want that.
Yeah.
You wouldn't read it either.
Now,
come on.
So let's move on. So we got so that was the experiment. It was not planned. Each leg of the experiment was just, hey, why don't I do this now? Why don't I do this now? I had thought about doing the sermons for skeptics things before, and I am gonna keep doing them. And I'll tell you why I'm gonna keep doing them. Okay, first of all, there were good comments. Now, none of the good comments were had no insults, but that's fine. Or no, that's not fair. No criticisms. But that's what I wanted. That's what I asked for. So when Paulogia or Shannon Q or Beth, there's a Beth somebody, and I don't even know if I should give her last name if she would want me to. But the other two are YouTubers. So,
if you post publicly on
it's Beth something.
Another tangent.
No, I don't know the rules on that. I don't know the etiquette on that.
Well, yeah, but what I don't understand is, Facebook people will share a tweet or a conversation from another Facebook, and they'll mark out the names, right? You've seen them?
Yeah, I do that.
Yeah, I noticed that you do. I know a lot of people do that. I'm sorry, if they make public comments...
No, I do it if it's in a private group and I'm sharing it somewhere else.
Okay, but I've seen things that, from Twitter that's not private.
Yeah.
What are we doing that for?
I don't know. Who cares?
If you tweet it, you own it. That's my philosophy, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows that you're the one who tweeted it because you wanted everyone to know that
you tweeted
well,
as best I can remember, Beth somebody I've had many good conversations with.
Who made a public comment on a public YouTube channel.
Right, and then a few others. And they made helpful comments. Paulogia primarily wanted to clarify what I was trying to accomplish with this, which that's why I kind of explained that a little bit here. Although he spoke as though these kind of arguments, I think skeptics have all heard these things before, so I think you're shooting for the wrong crowd here. And I tried to clarify to him, and he somewhat agreed that skeptics are. I hear from atheists all the time. Atheists are not one thing. Atheist is just the lack of belief in God. So you have all kinds of different people who lack a belief in God, right? Okay, well then if you're going to say that, if you guys are going to say that, then guess what? Skeptics are not monolithic. Right. There's a lot of different kinds of skeptics, and there are people that, not a lot, I'm not going to blow it out of proportion, but somewhat regularly, I get emails from people who watched the show, they were atheists, And then now they're believers, or at least leaning believe, because not just of our channel, but also Cameron Bertuzzi and Mike Winger and What Do You Meme and all the others. So there are different skeptics, and the things that move you might not be the things that move them. Here's the problem with this. Here's the problem with this experiment that if I was writing this as a dissertation or something, I would have to put this into limitations. And not the delimitations. I'm not doing this on purpose. The limitations of this are, I cannot help the fact that if I'm doing this on social media, the sorts of atheists and skeptics who are going to respond to me or watch the kinds of videos that I produce are overwhelmingly not going to be your average atheist on the street. I'm not saying they're going to be angry or vitriolic, but most of the people that are watching it because they already have a heightened interest in these discussions, which means they've thought a little bit more about it and have a deeper understanding and all that sort of thing. I can't get to, through social media and through our YouTube channel, the atheists on the street who atheism is a part of their worldview, but they just don't. They don't not thinking about it that much, right? Because otherwise that's why they're not watching the YouTube channel. And that's really the person I want the data on, but I can't get that data. So what I have to do is I have to cull away the haters and get of those already interested in this discussion, those that are most charitable. And that is where I think that Paul Ogio would characterize those people on the street I just said from my conversation with him that you can go read on there. I think he would think of those as seekers. He said, it sounds like you're looking for a message toward seekers. No, I'm not. I understand why you'd think that. I'm looking for a message toward skeptics, but not YouTube atheist skeptics, normal skeptics,
not
on the street skeptics. They're going to say, you're saying we're not normal?
Yes.
Quit looking for things to be annoyed about.
No, you make a good point. You're dug in.
Yeah.
You're not looking. Real skeptics aren't dug in. They're skeptical, which means they're skeptical of what you're selling to on your YouTube channel, right?
Yeah.
I mean, or at least a little bit. Even if they side with you, they're still like, I'm not going to go bluster certainty, about this. That's why Drew Beatty's my hero. I love Drew Beatty. In your debate, where he called Matt out on
where I chewed him out over this, or I lectured him from the stage in defense of Matt.
Yeah, which was bogus, because Drew Beatty was a hero. Because it's like we don't make no claims. Atheism is the lack of belief in God. Blah 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 blah. And then on Twitter it's like, ain't no sky daddy. Yeah. Where's your evidence? I thought you weren't making any claims. Ain't no sky daddy that I need to bow to. Blah 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 blah.
What accent is that?
Angry atheist Twitter.
There's an accent
person,
for that. Huh?
I ain't got no sky daddy out there. What do you mean? I thought you just simply lacked a belief, but now you're asserting positive beliefs that there's no kind of sky daddy whatsoever.
And that happens. That happens somewhat regularly.
Yeah. So don't give me this. You lack a belief. You're making positive claims. If there ain't, you may not believe that our sky daddy is real, but you can't say that there ain't no sky daddy whatsoever. Unless now you made a claim, so Don't tell me you simply lack a belief. Because when you're mouthing off on Twitter, you know what I say when I'm not mouthing off? Jesus is king, like Kanye says. You know what I say when I am mouthing off? Jesus is king, and God exists, and God raised Jesus from the dead.
I do have a sky daddy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's external to the physical universe, but what you're trying to convey as an insult, I fully embrace as reality.
Don't give me this that you're simply and like you said earlier about.
We ought to make a video of atheist parodies of the Christian message that we actually fully embrace.
Right.
That's why yesterday there were several people who you could tell either didn't listen past the first bit or chose to focus on the first bit, who said this is just one of those look at the trees type message. Well, first of all, no, it was look at this awesome pink praying mantis message.
Yeah.
But look at the trees. That's a trope, in case you're unfamiliar, that atheists will say, anytime a design argument comes up, it's look at the trees, look at the trees. Yes.
Yeah,
looking at trees as an evidence of design is a fantastic place to start. So if you want a Christian that you can cut this clip out for a video in the future where you can make fun of us, I'm about to give it to you. Are you ready? Here it is. Look at the trees! Look at the trees! So use that to your heart's content. I'll defend it.
That's right. I like that.
Thank you. Go ahead.
At the trees. Well, I forgot what I was ranting about.
Okay.
You're like,
so,
look at the trees! But yeah, look at the trees. Trees are awesome. And they're like everything else in the cosmos, they declare the glory of the Lord, which presupposes that the Lord exists. So.
Well, and you get comments with some people. That I wouldn't believe you're believing on bad evidence, and the stuff that you're presenting doesn't get you there. So like one person was saying about the resurrection case, they were listening to one of our videos where I commonly say, if God exists and God raised Jesus from the dead, Christianity is true, period. Whatever you want to say about secondary doctrinal issues or inerrancy of Scripture or anything else. And I have more than once had people say, that is so disingenuous. Because you know that there well may be a deity that exists that raised Jesus from the dead, and Christianity still isn't true. First of all, I love Frank Turek's response to this, which is, yeah, and I've got a principle that I follow for my life. If someone rises from the dead, I believe whatever they say.
Yeah.
so that's one thing. But secondly, if you tell me, first of all, who's being disingenuous here? Because you don't believe there's a God who raised Jesus from the dead. Right. But if you were willing to grant me that God exists and God raised Jesus from the dead, but Christianity, mere Christianity, is false, I am well within my warrant to believe one of two things is true. Either there is some cognitive dissonance going on with you, the likes of which has never been seen, or two, you're just lying.
There's because you can't have Cartesian. There's a 1% chance that Cthulhu raised Jesus from the dead to deceive the whole world.
I didn't say I'm certain of this. I said I'm well within my warrant to believe that one of these two things.
I know,
is
but
true.
I'm just playing the atheist going to say, no.
And there's my response.
Yeah. I think it's far more likely that Yahweh, God, raised Jesus from the dead than Cthulhu did it. But
yeah.
Because if you say that I can't not know, well then give me some evidence to weigh those, to recalibrate those scales to see why I don't. And that's another thing that people didn't like about his sermons is putting the reasons onto the scales to.
I think that's so fair. Like for those of you that get annoyed with presuppositionalism, the presuppositionalists want to say no, because of our epistemology as presuppositionalists, we can have Cartesian 100% certainty about this without the possibility of being wrong or doubting or whatever. Okay, great. If you don't like that, I'm not there either. I don't buy that. Yeah. So if that's not where you are, then, by the way, if that's you, wonderful. I think that's great. If you've got that level of certainty, or you think you've got that level of certainty, I'm all for you. But here's the thing: for those of you atheists who look at that like me and say, I don't.
Yeah, and
then guess what? You ought to like the fact that what he's saying is, what's on this side, the belief side, what's on the doubt side, and where does it go?
Right, and he actually left some.
He said, "I've got some stuff on this thing." Right. I love that. How honest! Like that's incredibly honest. Yeah. So here's my conclusion. Now let me have some space here. I'm going to say this. Number one, again, I want to reaffirm to you that those of you who I've just bragged on, who really, as atheists, endeavored to be charitable and give constructive and criticism, positives, things you liked and things you didn't like. Thank you. I really do appreciate that because you did what I asked. And you didn't have to do what I asked. I'm just some guy. But you went the extra mile, and you gave me what I asked for, and I so appreciate it. Now, the larger percentage...
Hang on. I want to say something.
Okay.
And for those of you who didn't, thank you for also responding with your vitriolic anger stuff so that I can stereotype you on the show, as I've done.
Well, you may be surprised at what I'm about to say.
Okay.
So for those of you that did that, the larger percentage, the overwhelming majority...
The overwhelming majority of childish, vitriolic, angry behavior from atheists, that's typical.
Yeah. And like you said, there are Christians like that. Got it. Okay, we're okay. But here's the thing. What I found was, if you take away all the things that atheists commonly have told me, especially as respondents on Twitter, that they hate the most, which is the hellfire and brimstone stuff, the not at least trying to demonstrate what you're saying, the bad caricatures of the other side. Let's help them out and throw on a couple more things. The gays, the speaking out against LGBTQ AI plus things, the abortion stuff. If you take all that stuff away and just say, here's our message. Here's a couple of reasons in a short sermon why I think it's reasonable to believe. Here's I'm not going to mischaracterize you. You've got your thing. Everybody answers these questions differently. Here's how we answer it. Here's why. Hope that helps.
Yeah.
What you get is the same vitriol, overwhelmingly, that you would get if you took some any preacher. I mean, let's call away like the new IFB type people. Yeah. But if you put in like just the normal, your everyday Southern Baptist or something who might be talking about hell and everything else, you get the same level of vitriol for the most part, which leads me to this. And you tell me in the comments. You tell me in the comments if I'm being unfair, because I don't want to be unfair. I don't want to unfairly use your words against you. So I want you to tell me if this is right. It sounds to me like that despite the fact, I can only come to the conclusion that despite the fact that I'm told it's this, and this that's the real. We don't mind if people have their beliefs and have their church experience and all that. It's really these things that are big hot button issues. Those are the things that we. If you peel all those away, you get the same level of vitriol, which tells me what's the same in this message and this message, the gospel. And it tells me that it's actually vitriol against the gospel message.
Yeah.
Now, that's not everybody, but some of the Christians are saying, you're right, we could have told you that already. And I know. But I'm trying to sift through this and see if I listen to them, if I listen to skeptics, what do I hear? That's what I hear. Not from everybody, and again, thank you, those that aren't this way. But that's very interesting. That's a very interesting thing to discover.
Yeah, and I found a lot of it interesting, but what the overwhelming vitriolic reaction that you're going to get is to any kind of sermon from Christians, but most of that's ranting. I want to believe somewhere, and I don't have much belief in this, but Benjamin Franklin was not a Christian, right? He could sit through Whitfield's sermons and enjoy them.
Well, if you believe in conditional security, he was and then he wasn't.
Okay, whatever. Well, but when he was sitting there listening to Whitfield,
he's a deist.
He wasn't. Yeah. But he could.
But he loved Whitfield.
Yeah, well, and he loved his sermons.
Yeah.
And there were some atheists who were like, when it comes to the positive messages, or they would say things like, I want to believe that that's true, but I want to also believe that the ones that are just angry, ranting on that. Mm-hmm. If they wasn't on the internet, and if it was like you were able to get them to come to church, that they would be able to sit there and just not be like, bah, the whole time. That they could actually sit through 30 minutes of somebody talking about something with which they don't agree. I mean, surely possible. But the other ones who were the helpful ones, it was, again, there was some a minority that say just give it to the hell brimstone. But what I think about this idea of the gospel is offensive to both is because, because the gospel will eventually get you to some of the things that you don't like. Even if the sermon didn't contain that stuff that you said you didn't like, you will be confronted with it inevitably. And so either way you go, and even our pastor, we've selected this one, but not every sermon is going to be that kind of sermon.
Yeah.
He's not a one-trick pony,
that's true.
one-dimensional pastor.
There are, for the most part, he's not the hellfire and brimstone type guy. Now, he has preached a message on our understanding of the nature of hell and things like that. Yeah. But here's the thing. Even when he does those things, it's very much like what you get on this channel from me, and even maybe not quite as straightforward as that sometimes. Like he's aware of who he's talking to and wants to not at all water it down, but to present it without the baggage that I think many skeptics hate that comes along. Now,
I don't know of any. Most that is if a preacher is preaching hellfire and brimstone every week as a pastor, not like an evangelist, just as a pastor, that's a terrible preacher, because you're obviously not preaching the whole counsel of God, because the whole counsel of God has more than just heaven, hell, yes, no, Jesus. Right. I mean, you can get to the gospel and what the gospel saves you from in every sermon, but the focal point of every sermon should not be
hell,
slinging fire and brimstone, because not every passage in the Bible. I mean, you can't read the book of Ruth and start slinging hellfire and brimstone. And if you're not preaching the book of Ruth, you're not preaching the whole counsel of God.
Right. So, but now here's we come to this. I'm going to do this again. I am going to present so my plan is with the sermons for
I
skeptics.
saw that look on your face. You're like, I could sling some hellfire and brimstone from every verse in the book of Ruth. That's what that face was. wasn't it?
Well, what I'm thinking is the story of the Bible is God's love for mankind. We're to love the Lord our God, love our neighbor as ourselves, and there is a salvific thread through the Bible. And
yeah, no, I said you could get to the gospel from every path.
Right.
But what I'm not saying is you can't just maintain that fire and brimstone.
Right.
Because what comes with
I got it. We got it.
is an angry voice and the loudmouth,
I know.
leather lung, red face that you
you
brand yourself.
Yes.
And I was saying you can't really just do that with every single.
So my plan is I'm going to preach some sermons. I've offered for Dr. Pritchett.
I might.
But I'm going to craft some sermons using what I've learned from skeptics. I'm going to try to craft some sermons that my hope will be, and I'm going to preach them on stage. And I want and Brett, I'm going to select some from Brett, probably from this series.
Yeah.
And once every couple of months, maybe, this may go on for a year. Rarely, we're gonna do Atheist Church. We're gonna do sermons for atheists, sermons for skeptics, and I want to engage on them because one of the things that they said they wanted, that some of them said they wanted. In fact, Brett looked at the Twitter thing. Now, this was after he'd already was about to preach. He'd already written his sermon and everything. He didn't write that sermon for this. But I told him to look at it, and he was like, what I seem to be getting from him is they like, and this is something we didn't mention, I like historical backgrounds of texts.
Right. Well, historical and cultural backgrounds of the context, the original context of the original, which it's not a sermon, but I mean, I've got my.
It can be involved in a sermon.
Well, yeah, but I also have my Bible study on First Peter. Or at least I go through the first, and I know I need to finish that up, but that's all I do in that Bible study is give you a lot of background stuff.
That's on this channel if you want.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about First Peter chapter 1, and we're talking about Second Temple background literature. We're talking about Greco-Roman background literature.
Yeah. So they said they wanted that. He said he noticed that a lot of them wanted that, and a lot of them wanted Q&A type stuff, which isn't really a sermon, right? But here's the thing:
the people in Corinth wanted that too because they were used to the oracle at Delphi, and Paul told those women that kept wanting Q&A to shut their mouths. So.
You would say
not because they were women, but because they were asking questions. There's a time for Q&A, and the worship service is not that time.
Right.
So sermons are not ever going to be Q&A, and I think they knew that.
But that's one function that these sermons for atheists on YouTube can serve. You got questions? That's the place to, and I may even have Brett come on one day and help me sift through some of those questions, or you help sift through some of those questions, and you can do that here. We're going to provide that for you.
Notice that we do Q&A events at churches where you can come to the church building and ask questions. We do that.
Yeah.
That's
but
not the sermon.
But we're going to do it on this channel.
Yeah.
We're going to let it happen on this channel. So that's something you wanted. You're going to get that. And I'm going to keep doing this. And here's why I'm going to keep doing this. Because though I know that the 10th time this happens, if it goes that far, I will still get the vitriol. I'll still get the hate from a lot of people. Because if for no other reason, there'll still be people that are just discovering the video. But also because
it's the internet.
There are
currently
somewhere around, I don't know, it was 229 last night when I looked. Let's say 300 comments on that message right now. 300 comments on that message. But as I sit here speaking with you, there are, let's see, I'm going to look at real-time views. There are 1,100 people who have viewed that message that I posted yesterday. So 1,100 people have viewed it. Let's say 300, being liberal, have commented. That tells me the vast majority, and most of those are repeat comments.
Yeah.
That tells me the vast majority of people watch it and don't comment, which means those people that email me and are interested in the Christian faith because of videos here or on other channels like this, stuff's getting through to them. So even if it's not for the vitriolic people out there, it's for somebody. Yeah. And people are different, and skeptics are not monolithic. And we're going to keep this experiment going. And I believe there's going to be fruit. I believe we're going to see good fruit from this.
And our good friend Pine Creek is worried about us because we're on the rise, according to his.
Pine Creek did recently do a study. I told him it was encouraging in the comments. I don't know if he saw it. But he was doing a study where he was changing the metrics around on Christian and atheist YouTube channels, and so if you just went by views, obviously, Inspiring Philosophy, Mike Winger, people like that are way up there, right? David Wood's got at the top above everybody, right?
Yeah.
Focuses primarily on Islam. But if you change the metrics around and look at like views per sub or views per day or things like that, Pine Creek did those metrics and laid them all out there, and there were several different ways he did it. And like most of the ones I saw, Trinity Radio was like up closer to the top, like certainly in the top 10, and sometimes in the top 3 or 4 or 5. Yeah. So that was very encouraging, Pine Creek. Thank you. That God used you to encourage me in that way.
Right, to keep going, to reach the sliver that we're going to. And then, I mean, for the rest of the people, we're happy to entertain. We entertain atheists. They watch this. They watch your response videos. They watch this show because, really, if you didn't like it, why are you spending time watching something?
I mean,
so we're going to keep doing this to entertain the lovers and the haters and ourselves, and we're going to do it for the people that we can reach.
Yeah, and so, I pinned to the top of the last. The video where I taking on 15, one Christian against 15 or whatever. I pinned at the top of that a Christian who was saying how helpful it was to them personally. And then there were several people under that seconded it. That's not me just bragging on myself, but here's the thing. There was an atheist who put in there, and guess what? You're helping us atheists too. And it was something to the effect of, because the idea was some of these things we haven't thought of. And you're giving us the arguments so we can go try to figure out how to deal with them.
Right.
So, there are atheists who are enjoying this.
And according to Braxton Sonny, he's like, yeah, go do this. What do you got? Is that all you got? Bring it on. That's what you're saying.
There are people going through that video right now, more than one person going. On question 1, the first person, you didn't do this. On question 2, you missed it completely. And question 3 and question 4. When I first got into YouTube, I would not be able to help but to respond to all that. And at this point, I just can't. I'm sorry if that's you out there. I can't bring myself to do. I won't delete it. Leave it.
I might if it's long, and I'm like, he spent time on that. Gone.
Oh, Pritchett.
I know.
You won't do. Well, we hope that you'll continue to help us out. Hey, if you believe in what we're doing, because you'll see here, we're actually trying to do something with ourselves. We're actually trying to
make something of our lives.
We're
not only a seminary president and a seminary vice president. We're still trying to do something with our lives.
We're not trying. Yeah, we don't want this to just be. We want to be YouTube famous. We don't need to be YouTube famous. We want to help do something great for the kingdom. And at minimum, we want to clarify theology. We have episodes like that. Not so many here lately, but we have episodes like that. But we are responding to atheist skeptics out there who are on YouTube, which YouTube is the second most popular search engine now on the internet, according to somebody I heard lately say that. So that there are so many. This is where young people and old people go to find out how to fix their dishwasher or how to respond or how to feel about faith issues. So if you believe in what we're doing, I mean this. We need your help. We need your support. I'll give you a couple of real tangibles. We need to come up somehow with $300 because I want to get. I need to get a better video editing software. Do you know I just use iMovie? The other day, Cameron Bertuzzi was like, "What? You just use iMovie?" Which, frankly, was encouraging because he couldn't tell that I was just using iMovie. Right. But the thing about it is, we need to get a better software for that, and we need a dedicated Mac computer. You brought that up, just for Trinity Radio. So those are some tangibles, and they cost quite a bit. The stuff I'll tell you how we're using the money that we already get through Patreon is we're using it for
lunch. We're using it for vacations. We're using it for Logos Bible software,
which is extremely helpful
yes.
in our own research, but that spills over into Trinity Radio too. We're using it somewhat regularly to buy new software, buy new equipment. Just recently, I bought a second battery for the main camera here, and I bought ScreenFlow, which is another thing. Money goes real fast when you got these monthly regurgitating payments that make the show what it is. And some people fall off occasionally. It rarely happens, and I'm grateful for that. But some people fall off as patrons, and we don't. So anyway. I just I would love it if you would help us out, and you'll be taking part in what I think is a viable ministry that has resulted in people coming to Christ, and we don't even know the extent of it. So if you want to do that, you can go to patreon.com/TrinityRadio, or you can click in the top right-hand corner of this screen, and let's see what else. Check out our sister programs.
What are they? Oh yes, soteriology something with.
Soteriology 101.
With light and flowers. Yeah,
he's been in that same 101 for years now. He can't get out of 101 to 102.
Come on, Leighton.
201.
No, it's Leighton. I'm sorry.
Leighton.
Leighton Flowers at Soteriology 101. Matt Chiselholm. How do you... Chislom?
Chislom.
Yeah. And Billy Wendlin.
Yeah.
Is it Wendelin or is it Wendlin?
I'm confident that it's Gwendolyn.
Gwendolyn. Okay, Billy Gwendolyn at the Bro Down Bible.
And Steve Gregg, the Narrow Path.
Yeah. He's famous. Everyone
there was something else.
And yes, we still do have new shows coming, but I don't know why they're not coming. So.
But speaking of Leighton Flowers, is really funny because someone on the most recent video, the one with the sermon, they were like, I really hate to say this because I love Leighton Flowers, but, and he went on to say some things about sermon. I'm like, what, do you know what channel you're on?
Right.
And it was that John Q somebody. He's always on Leighton's channel.
Yeah.
I think he just didn't know where he clicked. Anyway.
You know what? Speaking of preaching, Leighton's a good preacher. Have you ever listened to his sermons?
Yeah.
His sermons are great. I don't know why he doesn't just post sermons more often, because he does go speak a lot. So, Leighton, you're actually pretty good. You should think about going pro.
I love sermons.
I do too.
All right. We'll see you next time on Trinity Radio.
This is the last word.
Yeah, I'm guessing that if you are looking at a sheet of paper or a screen and we were to suppose the ETT was silent and somehow the ARD is invisible, then I guess I could see how someone could conclude that my name is Jonathan Pritchard.